Everything in Python 3 is an object. Variables, functions, even code, all of these things are actually objects. In Python, every object has an ID, a type, and a value. The ID is a unique identifier that identifies a particular instance of an object. This cannot change for the life of the object. The type identifies the class of an object. And again, this cannot change for the life of the object. The value is the contents of the object, including whatever variables or methods or properties the object may have. Mutable objects can change their value. Immutable objects cannot. Let's take a look at an example of an object. This is idle. It's the graphical interface to the Python shell. Python comes with this in graphical environments like Windows and a Mac. And if you're in a non-graphical environment, an environment with just a command line, you can just run the Python interpreter at the command line and you'll get exactly this same interface. So let's go ahead and create a variable. For example, let's create an object. We'll call it x and we'll assign it the number 42. So if we type x by itself, the Python shell here will give us the value of x. So that's its value. Its ID is this number, and the size of the number, what the number looks like, is going to be different depending on what your implementation is. Generally, it's like an address. It is a unique identifier that identifies this particular object. And the type of x is class int. And you remember, everything in Python is an object. And so objects have class. Their type is a class. And so in this case, it's an integer. All variables in Python are first-class objects. And what that means is that what might look like a simple variable may actually be something more complex. It could be an object that's been defined in a library. It could be a built-in object. It can be any sort of a thing, and it will oftentimes have attributes and methods. And we'll get into the details of that later on in the course. But for now, what's important to understand is that everything in Python is an object, including variables. And as we look at variables and we look at the types of variables and how we use them, you need to realize that they are objects. And we'll oftentimes be using syntax like this v.attribute or v.method to access the attributes and the methods within those objects.